again. Today I'm once again joined by Raphael to talk a little bit more about the CodeBuild to GitHub Actions integrations, or better the other way around. Raphael, great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me again this week, Johannes.
We're going to touch on 3 different items today. That's the plan. One is a follow-up from last video around pricing for using CodeBuild in the GitHub Actions. The second piece, a very interesting topic around secrets injection. How are we going to deal with secrets being injected into builds executed on CodeBuild? And then last but not least, we got some questions around how to pre-provision the prerequisites using CDK. Raphael, you did some work on that, so that's going to be the topic number 3 that we're going to look at today. Without any further ado, I would propose let's start with the pricing. And I will share my screen for that, and we're quickly going to look at the initial pricing structure that the different tools have, and then we're going to try to compare them a little bit, right? So if you look at the AWS CodeBuild pricing page, what you can see over there is that you pay per compute type that you use, and my examples are going to be all on using US East. You can choose different images for CodeBuild, and you can also execute CodeBuild on Lambda. CodeBuild on Lambda, I think, has some limitations, right?
Yes, Lambda runtimes do not support Docker. So if you are building, for example, a CDK application and want to publish some containers, then a Lambda runtime wouldn't be suitable. So you probably need to use the standard CodeBuild projects for that.
Okay. Good, that's good to know. We will go back to that a little bit later, I assume. There is also a possibility to use reserved capacity. We are not looking at that today because we really want to compare GitHub Actions pricing with the CodeBuild pricing, and also really with the build minutes that are being executed. The free tier over here covers 100 total build minutes per month with 2 specific instance types, which seems to be very low from the free tier perspective, but that's at least what you don't need to pay for. As we are looking more in the enterprise world, we're not going to take those into account. If we look at billing for GitHub Actions, right, it's also in a way like there is a free tier. The GitHub free version includes 2,000 build minutes per user at the end. In Pro, you have 3,000 build minutes included. And afterwards, you're also going to be charged for using relevant builders or runners, right? We have compared Linux 2 core and Windows 2 core and these kind of things. We're going to look at that just in a second as well. Important to note here from my perspective is that they have a macOS version, and CodeBuild still does not have a macOS version, which is a difficult thing that I've been trying to challenge the CodeBuild team with for a while.
We're also not considering the macOS build at the pricing calculation now.
Yep, well, because that's not comparable at the end, right? And as you can see, you can scale the GitHub Action Runners as well. And we're really looking at GitHub Action Runners hosted by GitHub to compare those, right? Because that's essentially what the CodeBuild feature replaces. They also have a cool pricing calculator in the same way that AWS has a pricing calculator. As it's really hard to compare those, we created an Excel to have a look on that. And I would propose, Raphael, if you don't have any questions, we can just directly have a look on that. What do you think?
Sure.
Cool. So the Excel starts with builds per day.
Maybe increase the size of the spreadsheet so it's easier.
That's things I don't really know how to do. A little bit better?
Yes.
Or still too small? Can go even further. Okay, so inputs that we used is the number of builds per day, the average number of minutes per build, and that calculates up to a build minutes per month. That was our assumption, right? We say we have a team of 5 using trunk-based development. They commit twice per day, roughly. which brings us up to 10 builds per day. Then the minutes average per build is going to be 20 minutes. And that means it sums up to 6,000 build minutes. As we said, we're not talking about the free tier, and we're not including the free build minutes that GitHub Actions has, right? If you translate that to the GitHub Actions pricing, we get to roughly $50 when using Linux, and this is now 2 core machines, right? And we get to $100 when using Windows. And as you can see, macOS is really way more expensive. Anyway, if we then look at comparing that with CodeBuild pricing, if you use EC2, you can save up to $30 if you are on this 2-core CPU. This is for ARM builds. For general builds, you can save about $18 then at the end, right? So we need to compare this and this number. Important to note that the Windows capacity is in CodeBuild not available for the small instances. That starts with the general one medium. I think that's a 4-core CPU if I recall correctly. And there you can see that actually the price is going to be higher. But keep in mind, this is 2-core CPU. This is a 4-core CPU, right? So maybe we should just quickly have a look on what the 4-core Windows pricing is. The way that GitHub does that is you need to use this piece at the end, right? So Windows 4-core. Let's just add that into our pricing sheet so everyone sees that this is really live. Actually, let me move that over here, and then we're gonna make this a little bit more understandable. Windows 4-core would then be $B3 $3.
That's Johannes showing off his Excel capabilities and skills.
Excel is so important. Anyway, I think it's important to compare these numbers then at the end, like the 4-core with the 4-core, right? And then you can see that GitHub Actions pricing is a little bit higher. And as I said, there's also reserved EC2 pricing. Looking at Lambda, I have taken the 4 gigabytes. I think that translates to 2 vCPUs, right?
Something like that.
Correct?
Yeah.
You can even save some more there. Maybe not as much as kind of I would have expected. But what you get out of that is no Docker support, which is bad. But at the same time, a faster startup time, right? So we know that CodeBuild Actions sometimes have some delay in booting up. They are slow, right? And this is what Lambda resolves. So you will need to pick that on your way for your build what makes sense.
Yeah, but keep in mind that there are some limitations running the CodeBuild job on the Lambda functions, like no Docker support. I don't know if there are other limitations, but if you're just using the native build functionality, install some dependencies, run some build jobs, a Lambda function could be really a good choice to save some additional money and gain from this additional faster startup times.
Yep, cool. So so summary, CodeBuild, running GitHub Actions on CodeBuild seems to be a little bit less expensive. Just a little bit. As I mentioned, right, keep in mind, the free tier for GitHub Actions is way bigger than the free tier for CodeBuild. So for smaller projects, you might not even go above that free tier, right? So you'll need to take that into account before you just move over. But if you're already a large enterprise using a lot of build minutes, then it might make sense to look at this new feature.
Maybe we can quickly calculate a percentage, how much cheaper the GitHub is, and then you can extrapolate for your enterprise, saying you have like 10 teams, and then the overall savings are getting a little bit bigger.
So you really want me to show off my skills in using Excel?
Sure.
And I told you I'm really bad. Maybe something like that would be good, I guess.
Yeah, that's.
But actually, it's not Excel. We need to be very cautious here. It's Google Sheets.
Oh, sorry.
Right. There's a big difference in that. So, and kind of it doesn't. I'm just checking because this is ARM Linux and this is general Linux small. So we actually need to compare this one with this one, right? And then also we need to compare this general medium one is a 4 GB CPU, right?
Probably.
So I need to get Linux 4 core blah blah blah, this one, and compare that. Oh, that was not what I wanted. Anyway.
So overall,
Linux
the pricing
4
should be looks quite good to select AWS as some kind of runner option for your teams, because if you have a lot of teams, a lot of minutes, then the 3 tiers will be exhausted very fast. If you have like 10 teams, 100 teams, whatever in your organization, and each team can save like 20 to 40%. I think that's a noticeable saving for your company.
Yes. What I don't understand is, what did I do wrong?
Okay, maybe we should do that afterwards and publish some numbers then.
Don't challenge me that much. That's not really. I'm not really good at Excel, but it was worth a try, right? So if anyone has better Excel skills than myself, please reach out to us afterwards, and happy to share this Sheets document with you, and you can help me or help us improve that. So now I'm confused because I did something wrong. Now we're gonna finish that, Raphael. Now that you challenged me with that, I just need to do that piece. Okay, so now we can see that. In Linux 4 core we get to 60%, 62%, and in Windows we get to 56% of the GitHub Actions pricing. So translating, we can save about 30%, 35%, maybe a little bit more, which kind of seems like a big deal.
Yes.
Cool. If you have any more questions on pricing, please reach out to Raphael or myself and let us know in the show notes. And with that, I would propose that we move over to secrets management, which seems to be a very interesting topic as well, right? In this case, my questions to you would be, Raphael, do I manage secrets on the GitHub side? Do I manage secrets on the AWS Systems Manager side? What the hell? How does this all play together? And maybe you can start giving some background around that.
Yeah, so with this new option to run a code build job or runner within your AWS account, you got another option to inject secrets into your pipeline. In the past, it was basically just configure secrets or parameters on the GitHub project, and then it would be accessible within the job runner. But now with the code build job, you also have the option to inject secrets in the code build job itself, and then it's exposed as an environment variable within the code build job. And so you don't have to manage. So if you really have some compliance reasons, for example, that you only store secrets in Secrets Manager, now you got an easy way to inject them to GitHub. Because previously you always had to replicate probably these secrets, because sometimes these secrets are shared within your runtime or with AWS accounts and different organizations, and then it's what you need to copy over these secrets to GitHub and manage them there as well. And now we can leverage basically Secrets Manager and don't have to pull in those. Previously also you had, if you have this requirement that all the secrets need to be in Secrets Manager, you need to pull them in and in runtime of the GitHub workflow. For example, using the CLI or some other scripts to pull secrets into your environment. And these steps you don't have to do if you're using the code build job runner.
So this would then mean that in my build step, I would then just use the SDK and access the secret, is what you're saying.
You don't have to. Actually, you don't have to use the AWS CLI or SDK to retrieve a secret, because you can, while defining a code build runner, you can already define some secrets that are automatically injected as an environment variable into your code build job.
Okay.
But one
That's
thing,
cool.
One thing you have to be cautious about is, since GitHub does not know which values are sensible and which are not, because they are injected in the host machine. You need to make sure that you mask those values. So GitHub has a functionality to mask values, and whenever they are logged to the console or the UI from GitHub, then they automatically reject this value and replace it with some stars. And since GitHub does not know which, so for GitHub secrets, it does that automatically. But if you inject other secret values through an environment variable like the CodeBuild job, this is not done automatically, and you need to make sure that you register those values that are sensible on your own.
Okay. And can we show that, how to do that?
Sure. So maybe we combine it a little bit with how to set up a CodeBuild project in CDK and connect that with AWS directly. So let me quickly share my screen. Entire screen one.
Let's try that. And it's funny that we wear both wear the same reinvent jacket. We didn't talk about that before, right? So I laughed when I saw it.
Yeah. I somehow expected it because you wore that last time, but I thought, okay, maybe I try my reinvent hoodie this time, and the other one from last year is still in laundry, so I had to fall back to the black one. But yeah, that's a great gift because they are always high quality. I think these reinvent hoodies. So if you have the chance to go to reinvent, don't miss to pick up your hoodie.
They are not always high quality. I have the one from 2017, and that one was really bad quality, but it was also black.
Okay.
I still have it and I still use it, but it's way thinner than the ones that we got last year and the year before.
Cool. So what I have prepared is basically an empty GitHub repository, and for this repository, I had added two folders. One is an application. It could be a CDK application, for example, or the other part is for now our AWS setup, where we will define our CodeBuild job. So this is still an empty project, basically an initialization of CDK empty project. So we can clean that up, and now we can define a new CodeBuild project. So what we can do is basically
just before we go there, right? So coming back from the video that we did last time, we're now going to set up the prerequisites, which we set up manually in code.
Yes,
that is the plan, right?
That is the plan.
And that includes a code build project. It includes some connection to GitHub, and it includes picking some other things, I believe, if I remember correctly.
We come back to the connection between AWS and GitHub in a second. Just start by defining a new. So we will start with creating a new CDK dot AWS CodeBuild dot project. And this takes in some parameters, like always in CDK, you have to specify the scope, the identifier, and then some additional parameters. And now these additional parameters are those who are interesting. So we want, Code Whisperer already, or how is it called now? Amazon Q for developers.
Amazon Q developer already proposes
some kind of boilerplate. So it looks quite good. So we want to have a source defined, and this source should be from GitHub. And of course, the owner is not Josh Holmes. Shout out to Josh Holmes for supporting us here. I don't know who is, but somehow he contributed to, or he is part of the Amazon Q knowledge base. So the owner is basically my GitHub account. And the repository.
Josh Holmes is an American video producer, actually.
Oh, okay. So how we should
at least there's
how should we call this today? So last time was CI/CD with Johannes. So this time we will use maybe CodeBuild GitHub example. And this is actually a repository that needs to be existing. So we will probably publish that in a second to have a repository there. And since integration with GitHub uses the webhook API like we saw last time, we need to enable the webhook setup. And finally, the third prerequisite was the webhook filter. So let's see what Amazon Q provides us here. So we don't need this and this branch. And so now it gets a little bit tricky. CDK does not support the webhook invocation for now. So what we need to do is, so CDK does not have...
The reason for that is that it is not part of the CDK version yet, right?
Yes.
So we need to make that available. That would be an open source contribution as well if we want to.
Yes. So, but we know the name from it, so we can easily do some escape hatches and just use ts ignore, because the value itself is correct, but it's not registered as an enum value yet in the CDK project. So
that makes sense.
Basically, so this is the source connection, and now we need to define next to the source an environment. So we will use environment key, and therefore we can now specify what kind of compute type we want to use. So compute type is in what do you want, Lambda or basic normal runtime?
Let's go with basic at the end, right?
Okay.
And this is the one that we can also override in GitHub Actions data, right? So that's what we saw.
Not the compute type, only the instance type, the image type.
Ah, okay.
Yes. That's. I was struggling with that as well. I wanted to override the EC2 instance type with a Lambda function, and that's somehow not possible, I think, or I don't know the right parameters, but the documentation does not indicate that. And so we will use the AWS CodeBuild compute type small, for example, and the image type standard. Maybe we use a standard 7 version, and this is enough, I think. So this is basically all you need to specify to create a project, a GitHub CodeBuild project that is suitable to run GitHub Action workflows. So now we come to the authentication part. There needs to be some authentication between your AWS account and GitHub, because the GitHub CodeBuild project needs to set up a webhook integration into your GitHub account. Now there are two options for that. One is if you have installed the GitHub connector app, it automatically uses this GitHub app to connect your AWS account with the GitHub repository. And an alternative option is if you can use an personal access token, so like an authentication code for AWS to use, and this can be stored in a Secrets Manager. So you can go over to the AWS to the GitHub console and create a personal access token or fine-grained access token to use and authenticate CodeBuild to GitHub with this token. So these are the two options you have. So, but for now, I will go with the GitHub app. And this is actually a manual job. I don't know how to automate that, but you need to configure this connection between or install this application to AWS manually. So we go to the AWS console. Let me create.
And if you're sharing that, we're not seeing it because
I need to open a new window.
Of course.
So let's go into an AWS account of mine.
You got some there, right? And please don't show any bucket names. You know that can be very cost intensive.
That's probably already too late. So I think we need to go to CodeBuild. And now the tricky part, I'm using a new empty AWS account, so I'm not 100% sure how to install this application. I think the easiest way is create a new project, or at least open the form for it, go to GitHub, and then use connect to GitHub at least once. Confirm that you want to do that. And that was too easy.
Yeah, because you are already logged into
Probably.
GitHub, right? Probably.
So hopefully now the connection between AWS and GitHub is already established, so we can go back to our infrastructure code.
We will see that once we created the project, right? And then we will see whether there is something we need to fix.
Yeah.
Potentially, it is project-based, right? That connection. I don't really know that.
So first of all, we need to create a repository. So we use this current Git repository. And just create a new repository name, and the name was, we decided on go with CodeBuild GitHub example. It is my account, no description, it's public. And I want to edit origin. So let's see if it's created already. So it's not initialized yet. So what we need to do is basically git
push that stuff
add and git commit and git push. Now it should be initialized. Sure. And now we will deploy our CDK application. So we go back to the AWS setup, use my AWS account and run AWS npm run CDK deploy. Let's see. Okay, it's deploying something. Of course, we accept
and
all that
this would have
stuff.
been something we could have done with a GitHub action as well, once again, right? So
I think this initial setup you need to do somehow manually, because we need some authentication to the AWS account from anywhere. So this is probably a one-time thing, or maybe some system team can set up while provisioning an AWS account.
Okay.
So let's see. It is creating progress. Hopefully it is connected with the GitHub account correctly. We won't fail. We can probably go back here and see what we need. What we will see is, in the end, it will create a webhook. Oh yeah, it should be successful. So what this deployment does is it created a build project in the AWS console. So this is our project and it has some fancy name. It is connected with my newly created repository. It has some role attached, and in the GitHub side, we now have.
Let's have a look on the build, and the build triggers would be webhook as well, right?
I don't know. We need to add.
I don't know either.
So let's add some workflows.
Let's try that. Yeah.
We need to add a new folder. .github, and with that we need to have a new folder, workflows, and a new file, main.yaml, for example. And let's ask MSNQ to generate GitHub action workflow and see how good GitHub is. It looks quite promising. Let him generate finish. It gives me explanation, and I should be able to. Oh, this size is very hard. Insert.
Yeah,
insert
that's because
that was MSNQ.
Yes.
What does it do? So we need to find a runs on. So the runs on command is basically saying which runner to use. And in our case, I need to look up this syntax again. Do you know it by hand?
I think it was project name. And that's
so project name is then in the AWS console. You can use this value, or we probably should have defined a proper name for the runner. So maybe we should do that first, and so we have it easier. And just set a project name here. The project has now a project name, and we call it GitHub Runner, and quickly deploy that change. While it's deploying, we can go over here and say it is GitHub Runner.
So it needs CodeBuild dash project name dash GitHub Runner run ID blah 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 blah. Let me put that here into the chat. If I find the chat. I found the chat. That's what you need. What we need at the end.
So let me copy over that from the chat. It
CodeBuild
is
dash project name dash blah blah blah.
That looks good. And with that, we can probably add this file. So git So we are committing this file and pushing it so it will trigger.
And that should then automatically trigger the workflow directly here.
And git push. Yes, it is pushed. So let's go over to the GitHub project, and hopefully we should have a run. So there is a run triggered.
Yay!
Ready for run, build, and let's see if it's picked up by Copilot. To check if the CodeBuild is triggered, you can see it. Each run from your GitHub flow is also visible in your AWS console. So here we see now the GitHub runner is running in progress. We see the logs again from the runner itself, not the actions output. The actions output is only visible within our GitHub console or GitHub Actions tab. And as you already mentioned, we are using a EC2 based runner, so this takes a little bit longer to spin up and set up the process. So, but the connection worked, and we have some
errors.
We have some errors, of course, probably because something is okay. We don't have that's the workflow itself. It is generated from basically we didn't check what it actually does. It does check out some code. It set up Node with some very old version. So. But technically, we are now set up. So what we did is we generated a CodeBuild project. We pointed it to our GitHub repository, and because we already connected our AWS account with the GitHub account through the connector application, so we can also look at that quickly. So we have settings in our repository. There should be applications. Or is it on the account level? GitHub Apps.
Webhooks.
GitHub Apps. And here you see the AWS connector for GitHub. And that's basically the authorization for AWS to interact with your GitHub account.
And we should have a webhook here as well now. So
so this app sets up the webhook, basically.
Okay.
It has permissions to set up this webhook.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and I'm still curious about how can I see the log files of the GitHub Actions in AWS, but I think that's a question we cannot really answer yet. So
maybe we get now back to the actual question. We wanted to see how we can inject secrets in our runtime. So for that, we have the option to specify environment variables in our CodeBuild project, and we use this boilerplate, but we will call it. So there are two caveats. You're not allowed to start environment variables with CodeBuild because these are reserved word for CodeBuild jobs. And it is probably not recommended to use prefix with GitHub because it might override the environment variables from the actual GitHub runtime. So we will use custom and then secret, for example, as an environment variable key. And we say, okay, it is coming from Secrets Manager. And the value is, this is the name of the secret. So for now, we will probably just add a new secret. Secret is CDK dot AWS Secrets Manager secret. This some secret, and we forgot the new. That's it. And now we can use this one, hopefully here, to say secret dot secret name. And what it does, per default, it generates some random string, and this secret is then resolved while running up or starting up the CodeBuild job, and exposed as an environment variable. So if we deploy that,
just 1 second.
Yes.
Can we output that in the GitHub workflow?
Yes, we will add that in a second. Just deploy this change quickly. So we deploy.
Because this one now. Okay, got it. Yeah, we need to deploy this first, so we get the secret in.
And then we will probably just simply modify our steps. And at the first steps, we use a run command, so running some bash commands, and there's a neat functionality to print all the environment variables. It's called printenv, and we will use that to
let's answer yes below. Yeah, exactly.
To deploy to see all the environment variables that are available in your GitHub action run.
Cool, that makes sense.
So
yeah, sorry, I missed.
Let's wait.
I forgot that we're not using
until it's deployed. So it's updating. Oh, invalid update default policy GitHub role. Did I messed up something? We are defining syntax error in policy here. Let me check. So we created a secret, and the project has a name, has environment variables, and the environment variables has custom secret, and it should be a secrets manager. Let me quickly check if I missed something.
Can you show the error message again?
Yes.
Because it's a policy problem in IAM, which essentially points to maybe something that we named is not allowed or whatever. Because the policy is generated, right?
Yes. Default policy turn syntax error policy. Maybe the referencing is not working, so we probably should maybe create a secret name so it is independent of maybe this referencing is not working because there are some
but yeah, no, I think it is, but it didn't have a name. It was null before.
Yeah, it will generate one at deployment time, and maybe that's not working.
Okay.
So hopefully,
got it.
Because probably either the order of deploying things was incorrect, or referencing secret name is not possible. So let's try this again. So as a quick remark, so you can still use secrets in GitHub Actions. So if you're familiar with other processes to deploy secrets to your GitHub account, for example, using Terraform or something like that, you can still use those secrets in GitHub CodeBuild Runners as well. So it's just another option to inject secrets to use it like that in CodeBuild. So we now have deployed this new runners, and if you go over to the runner, you also see the CodeBuild project, and there is the, if you go to edit, you see that there is an environment set up. It should be here environment variables, and it's showing up our custom secrets, and this is the secret name in Secrets Manager. So hopefully if we now commit our workflow change, so status, it is our GitHub file, yes, git add dot git commit.
Just that didn't add it now. Just 1 second, because you are in the wrong folder. It did not add the workflow.
Thank you. Some human copilot.
Yay! You're not using Amazon Q developer for command line then?
Not yet. I haven't set it up, and maybe I should do.
I am not using it either. So.
But did you write it, or?
I did not since it went GA.
So now our new run is executing. We need to wait for the runner to spin up.
That's why you wanted me to use Lambda earlier when you asked, right?
Maybe. We can add that in a second and just use a second runner. So that's how easily you can generate a new runner, by adding Lambda and say, okay, in this case, it is compute type Lambda 10 gig. It is the best
of
compute
course
type we can offer, and we need to select some image that is Linux Lambda build image dot, let's use Node 20 runtime. And of course we need to specify different identifier. So go back to the setup and deploy the second runner as well. But meantime, it should pick up our job. Let's check if there's something missing. No, it's still in progress, so we will see the values hopefully soon. So if you don't use Docker, you probably should go with the Lambda runtimes because they spin up way faster.
That's correct, but then you also need to choose the corresponding Lambda build image and blah, blah, blah. So you're bound to using what the Lambda team offers for you, right?
I don't know why they are not picking up. It is connected. Okay. Maybe cancel and rerun. That's a demo effect. So the demo gods are not with us today.
I don't know. Everything went fine until now. So
we can also run in parallel after this deployment has happened at a second job that runs in the Lambda runtime. So each time we are deploying.
Can you go back again to the GitHub to the AWS console? And there's nothing else going on, right?
It says it's connected to GitHub and.
But it, yeah, running build job build.
Oh, there it is.
Now there we are. Okay.
So our interesting was the run printf. So we see a lot of environment variables that are pre-configured from the runtime, either from the GitHub side or the CodeBuild agent. For example, some things like the AWS execution environment. So if you have a workflow that wants to check which environment it runs in. This is an environment variable that can be interesting. You see it's running in a container, so if you want to retrieve some credentials from the container, you can use this environment variable to get that. And we are looking for our custom.
I love how it's not sorted. There is custom secret.
Did you find
the line number? Yep.
So,
line number 16.
And that's the thing I was mentioning. This environment variable is not masked in GitHub now. So whenever you use either access this environment variable, it is publicly visible. So keep in mind, if you're exposing these values, you should mask them. So I'm not sure if I can display that now. But if you sometimes you're mapping in some environment variables to some GitHub action task, and then it is you need to make sure that it's extracted. It is masked before using it. So how can we mask it? I have prepared a small snippet for that. So if I go back to my GitHub account, and it is in our CI/CD from last time. There I tried to work with that already, and we should have a small snippet from last time where we can simply add this echo command. So you have a run command which echoes add mask, and then the value which should be masked. So if we can go over to...
Okay, so it cannot auto-discover it based on the secret.
No. Maybe we should write a GitHub action to automatically retrieve the environment variable names, because they are somehow exposed through the AWS SDK API. So you can probably write a GitHub action that fetches the the environment variable names from the AWS API and then mask them all together. But it is not yet possible.
Yeah, what I was looking at is a configuration for the GitHub action at the end, right? Where you would say these are environment variables that should be masked.
No, you have to set up manually. So this is basically what I'm wanting to show here. So if we run, for example, like this, and this time it is custom circuit, I think, our environment variable name.
Mm-hmm.
And add this to the file, it should be now masked. So
let's run this on Lambda now.
Yes. Maybe on both. Why not? Yeah, never mind. Run on Lambda, so it was runner minus Lambda, and we have masking enabled. And let's commit that. So we're committing with the message mask secret and git push. Hopefully we named it Lambda. Did we name it Lambda? Yeah, GitHub runner Lambda. So now we should have another action run with our commit. And if you now go over to our runners, we have build project. We have two build projects now. One is the EC2 runtime and one is the Lambda runtime. And in the Lambda runtime, you see also in the project details, I think it is, no, not the project details. Probably we should to select one build run, and build details now shows that we are running on ARM Lambda. This is the role attached to the Lambda function. This is the image we are using, so it's an ARM image using Node.js. And we have our environment variables defined as well. And if we go back to GitHub, it now run first the mask command. And if we now go to the printf and look for custom, custom secret, it is now masked. So whenever you print out the sensible value, now it is masked from GitHub automatically.
Cool. So that's essentially what you need to keep in mind when you use secrets from Secrets Manager and GitHub Actions. And I think this applies regardless whether you use that on this integration or whether you use it on an existing GitHub Actions today where you import the values. Cool. Raphael, I think that's what we had planned for today, right?
Cool. So I can quickly tease. So if you need to switch roles or something like that, you can also define these parts in CDK. So for example, if you have, I don't want to use the runner role to deploy something, you can simply use some kind of deployment role which has some other permissions, and then in the GitHub Actions run you can use the AWS CLI, for example, to assume this role or other tools to assume this role. This is basically what I would recommend for your setup. To do not use the Actions runner, the GitHub Actions runner role directly to deploy, other than assume in a special role that has only permissions to deploy to some stuff. Also, maybe if you run your GitHub runners all in one account, you might assume a role from another account. So this could be easily done in CDK as well. Define the role you want to be able to assume, and then in the GitHub Actions flow you can assume this role easily. That's it.
Cool. Great. Then let's do a short wrap up before we kind of end the session, Raphael. So maybe let's do the other way around. So what did you learn about pricing comparison between GitHub Actions and CodeBuild Runners today?
So I was very impressed or surprised that the AWS offered runners are actually cheaper than the GitHub runners. So that's definitely a takeaway for me to maybe pitch it to my team to switch over to AWS runners. Not only because it's cheaper, it's also easier for an organization to allocate costs of your build runtime. So that's definitely a good takeaway from my side. What did you take away?
I took away that is not on the pricing side, but on the CDK side, it's kind of easy to set up the project. There is no big hurdle to make that available. Maybe it could be even easier on the console if you want to do it on the console, but the CDK pieces were pretty smooth. Also, the integration seems to be really great with the secrets. That's something that also others need to solve. And yeah, I think it is worth giving it a try and using that as well. Right? There's things that still need to be answered, but I think it's definitely worth a second look. At least that feature from my perspective. From a pricing perspective, I think the free tier minutes is the interesting piece. Like GitHub Actions has 2,000 or 3,000 depending on the model that you are on, and CodeBuild has 100 minutes, and that seems a little bit like a joke to try things out. But that's something maybe that can be addressed as well with credits or whatever, right? But still, I think that's something that maybe needs to be adjusted as well.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention, we talked about EC2 runner type and Lambda runner types. One thing I want to try out is use a GitHub action that uses a Docker image, because a lot of GitHub actions use Docker images, and it couldn't probably it's not that obvious to see, okay, I cannot use this action in a Lambda runtime because the missing Docker support. So if AWS comes up with an idea how to solve that would be totally great, because then you probably won't use the EC2 instances only if you run longer than 50 minutes.
Yay. And then last but not least, please give me macOS build images to run my Flutter builds. I've been saying that for 2 years now. Maybe someday someone will hear that.
Maybe.
So if you are running macOS builds and would like to do that on CodeBuild, please let me know. Give this video a feedback so we can forward all of those requests to the product team as well. Thank you so much, Raphael. Everyone watching this video should know you by now, but I will still add your LinkedIn to the show notes so people can find you if they have more questions. It's always fun to see your live coding, and you still need to give me all of the terminal hacks that you have, because I don't have any. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks again. And see you, I think, soon. I think we have another call in an hour or something like that.
Yeah. To organize some German
Bye-bye.
AWS user groups and all that stuff together. See you.
Bye-bye.